If you were to build a web application, PowerShell is probably not the first choice you will make because it was never designed for that. So here's the news. There is a powerful PowerShell module called Pode that allows you to both run your web server and build your application on top of PowerShell. That is without a single line of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And I'm going to show you now how to use this powerful module. Hello everyone, Kamil here with yet another PowerShell video and today we're going to talk about building a web app on top of PowerShell. There is a module that essentially allows you to build it. And if you haven't seen my videos before, well, I mostly focus on PowerShell words. So if you are a PowerShell enthusiast or you're starting to become, probably you will find my channel interesting for the longer term. But hey ho, let's start. I must admit, when I first time read on this, somewhere on Reddit, because I was looking for some kind of mechanism or tech to easily build web applications, I never considered PowerShell, and I heard about this project somewhere on Reddit, because I never even considered, putting words PowerShell, web server, web application even. Like, when I actually came to this project and I've used that, it just blew my mind. And actually I've managed to put it in production within a matter of weeks, because it gave me so much speed. And what we see here is actually the website of the module, and it's called Pode by Mr. Badgerati. And pretty much Pode, we're going to focus today actually more on the Pode.Web, which allows you to actually build websites, but Pode.Web kind of runs on top of Pode. Yeah, so Pode is our web server where you can see it has a bunch of features. Obviously it's cross-platform, it supports Docker, and actually I've run this in Docker in Azure. We have things like SSO and Active Directory authentication and a bunch of other stuff you wouldn't even imagine. It's also quite performant. I had at some time 300 or 400 people using it at the same time on 4-core machine, so certainly it works. Okay, so this is the website for the Pode, and this is the website for the Pode.Web. It's by the same person who started the whole project, therefore they look the same. They're also very well documented, so when you actually will want to use it, you can learn a lot from the documentation. Also, the Discord is quite popular, so if you're on Discord, actually you can just go and join it. Ask question and you will get answer within, well, probably hours, probably even from me, because I've already been answering some questions for people, although I've been using this for a few weeks, really. But anyways, what I prepared for you today, I prepared a couple of applications. First, we will run some web apps from the examples. So it's all the examples I could actually gather from here, just to quickly show you actually, how many lines of code are needed to produce a web app. And actually we're going to build a web app that allows for generation of random passwords and then pushing them to the pwpush.com. As I've been really liking this service and the API, it just works well. So let's have a look. Okay, so here we are in Visual Studio Code, and as you can see, there's not much going on. I'm obviously importing, and if you wanna follow along later on, you need to install Pode and then Pode.Web modules. They are just standard PowerShell modules. You just do Install-Module Pode, Pode.Web, install, sorted, done, working. It works on Windows PowerShell and it works on PowerShell Core. So it's up to you. It runs on Linux because I actually had it running in container on Linux. So whatever floats your boat. So we have 76 lines of code. We reckon how much stuff can we actually do with it? Well, let's try. I run this off for administrator for the reason of, you will see. So when we started, also application is also multi-threaded. So if you want, you can run it in multiple threads. For simplicity, we just run on single thread now. So let's open this page. And this is it. So we are now running on top of Pode. This is the 76 lines of code I showed you before. And as you can see, obviously this is just some basic form where you can enter information. And when we press submit, that information, that form will get that serialized and will return as PowerShell object. Yes, we work with normal objects here. So if you need pull data from database or from wherever, As long as you can have this as object, you are good to go. And PowerShell is all about objects, so I guess we are all good to go. So we have this. As we can see, form with quite a few different ways how we can input information. We have, for example, processes. So we can actually have a graph. So that's actually processes running on my machine as we speak now. So there's quite a few different graphs. If you like to visualize the data, you can absolutely do that. And for the final one, we have some services. So this machine will, this app will now pull services running on my machine. And here's the cool bit. Let's say I'd like to, I don't know, start this service. I press start, gives me a message, and actually it started it. So if I will go now to PowerShell or MMC and do get service, yes, absolutely. That is, you can actually have dynamic code. You can, do things like if you were doing with PowerShell. So how does this code look? It's pretty much this few lines of code. And that's pretty much what you were seeing mostly. So, my first page, services, and then all the magic for this, all the form, and then we have the processes. But okay, what will be fun now, because I think the best idea to grasp the language, the product, the technology, is actually use it. So what I've done before recording that video, I did write this little application that allows us to generate a password, random password, obviously, and then send it somewhere. Send it to pwpush so that they will get me a link back. So I remember back in my days when I was in, IT operations, I had to handle, send people passwords a lot, and pwpush was just a tool to use. Because it just gives you a link, the password is there, the link expires after X amount of days or views. So even if, the email gets hijacked by somebody later on who's supposed not to see it, they just see at that link, they don't see the actual password. So that kind of tool will be a blessing for me at the time. But well, hey, times pass, I don't work on IT operations anymore, I don't handle passwords, but I can write that application, so it's still fun. So what we're going to do now, I will just start a brand new file, and I will not exactly copy paste it, but I'll be rewriting this as we go, so you can actually have an idea how this all comes together. Actually, before we start, I can show you what we're going to build, because why not? We see how it will differ by the time I finish. If I run this now, I can specify how many characters are there, what sort of password I want. So I don't know, I want, say, this lot. I can then generate password, and it generates me random password. And the moment I press the push password, it will then PowerShell will go, call API of pwpush, and give me link. So if I see this password now, and I go and open different link, as you can see, the password is there. So simple web app, and I think we can, well, crack it in a matter of 20-30 minutes. Let's see how that works for my, idea of time, feeling of the time. And I hope by then you'll be actually able to build web apps. So I see you on the next clip. Okay, so there we go. We have a blank file. I also have some support files. One support functions. One is to actually generate the password, and I stolen it shamelessly from this website, from this blog. But anyways, it does a trick. It generates random passwords. Then this function is just the wrapper for actually what comes from the web form, so it makes it slightly easier to work with. And then my submit password function to actually send it to pwpush. So that's what I'll be using as my helper functions. And this is all on the GitHub, so if you want, you can just go clone and have fun with it. Okay, so obviously for the start, we got to import the module of Pode, and then Pode.Web, and then why is it doing this? Web. And obviously is import module. And then I like to explicitly load files. So we're going for name, and that will be from the source of the where I am. And it's called scripts, and then it's password.ps1. Yes, you can absolutely load ps1 files with import module. There is no harm in it. It's, I think, makes it actually a bit more explicit and obvious that actually I'm importing something from external rather than just .sourcing. and now we can just add false, so we will always redo that. Okay, so how do we start building the Pode server? So let's actually load it. So we have IntelliSense. What am I missing? Script. Scripts. Yes, scripts. Okay, go. Okay, so we have now Pode loaded, I would imagine. Yes, we have Pode.Web. We have Pode. So how we start? We just simply say Start-PodeServer. That's all it needs. And it pretty much takes a script block to go. So within the script block, it will then execute. And we need to start from what? We need to pretty much state where the application is going to be available. Yeah, at what ports, what address, what protocol, whether to use a certificate or not, and things like that. And we do this with add pode endpoint. This commandlet. And we say that our address will be, well, for now, let's just say it will be a local host, because I won't be exposing it. Well, actually, at the end of the video, I can actually expose it, and I will launch some VM to test it. Port, well, 8080 is said that if I'm developing something, I should be using this port. So let's try. Protocol will be HTTP, and then we'd like to force it, do we? Force it will allow me to run this app on the other host, then on the other address than HTTP without being admin. So it's up to you whether you want it or not. So probably if I run this now, let's see at which point actually we'll be willing to start. Actually, you see, it's already running. Although there won't be much to do. Yeah, there's nothing to do really. But as you can see, we're already having Pode generating some pages for us, which is, I think, nice. Okay, stop. Another, I think, important part when you do things in PowerShell, you wanna have some sort of logging, isn't it? So Pode has built-in logging one, and for now we can probably just do the terminal. You can either do the terminal or file or even logs, or where you need to. For now we can just do terminal, and then we need to pipe it to enable Pode error logging. And now we can say what levels we want, and we need to just specify an array of, say, error and warning. So pretty much whenever the Pode itself will throw, or actually will throw something, you will then log it to terminal. Let's try. We have not found. Still, obviously, because I didn't add any pages. Now, so as you can see, now we are within Pode. Yeah, but actually now we're going to run the very first thing from the Pode web, which is actually what allows us to build the web application. That will be use Pode web templates. So templates you actually try to go and load whatever Pode is shipped with. So we have this, and it's, let's say, passwords web app, and then the theme is dark. As you can see, there are a few themes. We have auto, so auto will adjust itself to whether you're running light or dark on your system. Custom, we can load something of our own if you are, good in HTML, CSS, dark, light, or terminal. I just like to stick with dark, so I just stick to dark. Okay, so what we need now, we probably want to add our very first page. So as you can guess, add Pode web page. So that's how we actually build our first page. So let's call this, I don't know, password management. And we need to, well, do we want some title? Well, we don't need to. We can just say we want some script block. So let's see if this will generate anything. Okay, as you can see, we really didn't add anything, but we already have a page with a sidebar, with some obviously blank page. We didn't add anything, but it already does quite a lot for us. Yeah, I didn't really add any information yet, and yet there is some things coming. I think that's good. Okay, so let's stop. So that's my very first page. And now within the page, we need, before we are able to add any elements, that is forms, graphs, text boxes, we need to put it somewhere, to put it in the container. So we add a new Pode web container. There are also other options for this, but we just go with container for now. And pretty much content, we can specify an array of things. And what will be there? Well, there was a form, wasn't it? So let's add the form. New. As you can see, there's quite a lot of nesting going on, which is, well, yeah, it doesn't probably. I personally would love to have to do this, so backtick and then move my brackets to the next line, but I'm still on the verge whether it's nice or not. So for now, we will just get rid of this. Okay, so we keep nesting. So we have the form. So we have new pod web form. And now let's just simply call it a password form. But pretty much when you give a name to something, if you were to open the HTML, behind that you see actually pod behind adds IDs to each of these elements. So you can actually then go and do something about them. But pretty much let's stick to the name that the names must be unique, at least as page goes. And we can now add yet another script block. So on my script block, well, what we want, no script block. I went ahead. We have a password form, and should I reset? I'm just looking what I have there, what actually will be visible as we build it, so you can see step by step. So let's do actually content. Because forms pod have two kind of parts of information needs. One is content, so how the pod form looks, so whether it takes web text or text or sliders or whatever. And there's actually a second part called script block, where actually the information from the form is being passed, and the script block will do something about that. So first of all, content will be like designing the interface, the user interface. That's what actually user sees. So in that case, we had a pod web range. This is the slider we had there. So how we call it? We call it length. And let's say that minimum allowed is 12, maximum allowed is 100 characters. And I like to show value, so actually a user will be able to see that value, and we will default to say 30 characters. It will fail now, but let's just add empty script block here, because otherwise pod will come and ask for script block, okay? Just want to show you that this will get added there, then we add a bunch of others. See, that's my slider. I can manually change it. There's even a submit button. Obviously it doesn't do anything because we don't have any script block, but you get the idea what pod does just out of the box, yeah? Okay, so let's carry on. So let's add a few more. So obviously we wanna add the pod web, it's called checkbox. So checkbox will allow us to, tick things or have a slider to do, switch to do things. So let's call it, say, options, and we can probably make it also capital L, options. And now we're passing the name of options. So what we have? Upper, we will have a lower, we will have a numeric, and we will have a special. Okay. And now what else we have? New pod web text box. So we can actually pass in our secret. Yeah, so that will be actually, because user might be able to actually paste the password themselves, or you will get generated. So one way or another. And let's add one more. Text box. Will be actually no, let's add password link bit later on. Let's make it very simple. Let's just get the basic form going. So at this point I should have, oh, something doesn't work. What did I break? This, yeah, we're missing parameter, because obviously I told you that the name is pointer, but we want options, actually pass in options. So let's try once again. Yeah, that's better. So you can see we have our slider, our text box, and we have a text box when actually somebody can punch information. And submit still doesn't do anything. So we're going to add now some logic to it. Actually add some, well, probably normally you want JavaScript, I'd imagine. I don't know. I'm no web developer. I just know Pod and PowerShell. Okay. So now for the script block, for some logic. So I guess we wanna have some sort of validation, yeah? So now notice I'll be actually writing normal PowerShell. Now, what Pode does, let's make it a bit more obvious. When you send information, when you serialize the form, it creates that web event. Actually, no, I'm lying now. Web event is always there for Pode. It keeps information track of your authentication, who you are, and a lot of things it does. And then it has, and it's pretty much a hash table, and then you might have nested hash tables within them. And pretty much when you send information for the form, you then have a data. Okay? So what I do here, just to show you, before we even go ahead with anything, I will just do web event data, and we do out default. Out default is what allows us to see how Pode sees things inside. Yep, so we just display it on terminal actually. So let's go. Let's start. Some information. Submit. As I can see, that's the information that comes from the web interface. So it's already PowerShell, it's still PowerShell, it's serialized for us. So they need to actually take this and do something about this code. Yeah? Cool. So let's stop it. So we know that we have some information inside. What we can do? We can, for example, do some validation, yeah? That if we don't have data options, yeah? So in other words, if I didn't tick any of these boxes, we can tell what to show a toast message to the user saying you must, select an option, yeah, anything, title and sort error. So pretty much if I don't tick anything, it will throw, not throw, it will yell at the user. Okay, now we do our, in the case actually we have some information there, then we can generate a new password. So in this case I'll be coming back to this file, yeah, this function of new password to pass information. So what I do, I just pretty much pass in this data object that we see there, yeah, so that my serialized data we've just seen, it gets passed to the object because it expects hash table of data. I have some default values there, over there, and pretty much if any of these values is present, so for example I have my lower or upper, it will then enable this on the function, on the actual root function. So it's be like a controller script, controller function for my other function. And once I've done it, I would like to Pode.Web text. I would like to update this field with the value that comes from my function. Yeah, the value will be np, and then the name Textbox, and then the name is secret. So update the secret text box with value coming from the password. Let's try. Okay. Boom. We have a password, although we don't have numbers. I wonder, because I haven't, yeah, I made a typo, we need to fix it. What about upper? We have upper, special. So as you can see, and the length also works, yeah? So as you can see, we are down to literally, how many? 40 lines. And we already have some kind of functionality. We already have working web app. That's kind of amazing, if you ask me. But okay, let's fix my spelling, so actually the number will work. So we have a basic now. Probably we can slightly make it slightly nicer now before we will add the, how is it called? The actual PW push part. Okay, so because we already know there's only one page, we can possibly tell that we don't want a title for this, yeah? You will just, we know there's one password management page, there's nothing else. We don't really need a page for that. And for the web form itself, we can add a few more bits to it. We can, for example, specify our own submit text. Obviously now it says submit text, but we can be more explicit and just say generate password. We can show reset. So that will show actually a reset button next to the normal one. That is, I can just create a form and we can specify the reset text. So we can say reset form. Okay, let's see. It didn't make much difference. See, generate password, reset form is there. Now let's see if my number got fixed. It got, actually I'm interested why it doesn't work. Okay, you see, we didn't check this one. So if I don't tick anything in complaints, I need to see why the number is not there. What am I missing? Because I'm missing something clearly. It's not number, it's numeric. Yeah, it's expecting numeric. Okay, so let's just call it numeric and hopefully that will work now. So we've seen that part. What else we can improve? For example, we might have these values, but they are kind of my internal values, and I might do something a bit more user-friendly, something a bit more obvious for the user. Yeah, so I can actually have a display name, and I need to pass in another array with the things actually I want to display them. So user will see my, so I can, for uppercase that could be this, for lowercase that could be that, for numeric that could be, I don't know, 0 to 9, and special could be some special characters like that. Okay, so pretty much Pode will now go override them. So it will display these values to the user, but when they tick the box, it will actually send this on the backend. So I can kind of very nicely have a nice user experience. I can then nicely have these values named internally, which I think is pretty cool. And maybe my secret we actually call password, because why not? Okay, let's try this. Crash. And I've broken something again. What did I break? Display options. I'm sorry. Not display name. That's options that display. Display options. This parameter. Okay. Let's try again. Crash. And we see now. And and this works. Yeah, we have numbers. They work. Validation still works, and reset form also works. Okay, so I think we have a basic user experience going. So now it will be good if we allow a user to actually go and push it to the PW push. Oh, let's stop it. So for this to work, we really need what? We need one more button, don't we? We need a generate password button or something of this of that matter. So new Pode.Web button. Name, we can probably call it push password. And now we need yet another script block. So now what's going to happen, because obviously now we can say there is some logic behind Pode what it does, but pretty much this button, because it's part of the web form, it will be treated like a part of the form in here. So the moment that script block will get executed when we actually press the button. We will also have access to web event data. Okay, so first of all, we need to double check whether we have something actually to push, yeah, whether our password field is not empty. So we can do, I don't know, check whether the string is null or empty. Yeah, so if you haven't seen this construct, here we're actually dropping back to .NET and we're calling method called is null or empty. And methods in .NET are like functions. I mean, probably somebody will kill me for this statement, but they do something with the object, they action something about it. In that case, we just say that validate whether that string is null or empty. And we validate our secret value. And why secret? Because I'll be validating this box and the name of it is secret. Okay, it's not display name we're after secret, we're after the internal parts. And once we have it, close it, open new brackets, and if actually it is null or empty, because there's nothing to send here, we then send a post, I don't know, password field cannot be empty, and the title is error. And at this point we do early return. So in other words, that script block will end at this point. Yeah, we won't execute anything further because, well, there's nothing to do, so we don't need. If, however, string is not empty, so that returns false, we can do generate a link from my other helper function called submit password, and the text will be pretty much the same. So if we go there, we have the passwords file, we have a submit password function that takes the text and calls it the PWPush API, and then it returns pretty much what comes back from PWPush. Once we have it, we have the link, and we can update, but we don't have a password link box, so there's nothing to update yet. Okay, so we need to add one more text box. So in that case, we do new Pode.Web text box, name, password, link. And because it's password link, we don't really want to allow users to change it, isn't it? Because, well, they can break it, I don't know. So we can say possibly read only. And let's see, in that case, once we have our password link box, we can say update Pode.Web text box, name is push password, and value is link. And that should do it, more or less. Okay, it's there. It's not quite aligned, but that's less of a problem. As you can see, I cannot punch in here. I can do this, push password, and something's not working. I missed something. What am I missing? Of course, I'm not updating push password. That's the button. I'm updating password link. So let's try. Okay, go. And there it is. Validate that. FFDS, it works. Generate password, push password. And it is working. So the only bug is this thingy, and this is actually a problem with CSS. So how do we fix that? We fix that by doing something like this button, CSS, so it's CSS style, and it takes a hash table. So we're passing hash table, margin hyphen bottom. So pretty much we just need to remove margin. I don't know if it's the best way, but it works. But it works. So what's missing between this example and the one I had there? We had some links there, isn't it? So let's, oh, and there's one more nice thing about Pode. If you press F12, you have a development tools when you can, you know, see what's there on the other side, actually what's going on behind the scenes and how it's built. But it also gives you an opportunity to enable the mobile mode. So as you can see, Pode, this is like if I was on the phone, and as you can see, I can absolutely use it out of the box on the phone. It will just adjust itself. which is a really nice feature, I would say. Okay, so we had these links there at the top, and I'm not gonna type all of them because this is pretty boring. I will just paste them somewhere, let's say just above our first page. So what we do here, we specify a divider. Divider is just this vertical line, and then we have this commandlet new Pode.Web navigation link, yeah, nav link. We specify the name, the URL, icon, and then that whether you want to open this on the new tab or not. And then once we have all of them, we add this. So obviously here I'm just declaring a bunch of navigation links, and that's how I configure them. I just set Pode.Web nav default, and then I pass them in the order I want. So I want my Pode link, then I have a line, Pode.Web, line, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Yep, let's see. And we have them there. So you see if I click Pode, it opens me the Pode page. If I open YouTube, it opens my page. Pretty slow. You know, and all this. So you get the idea how. So I think what's really left now is to expose it to some external. Yes, I could actually come and access it from the machine because it's web app. I'm not gonna run it on my machine, and we do this. It's pretty much about binding. Yeah, I need to bind to specific address. So by saying my address is 0.0.0.0, I'm saying bind it to all available network adapters. Or it will stay the same. I'm still HTTP. Again, we can, you know, if I wanted to, I can expose it to specific DNS names. I can actually have this properly working with certificates. So I can actually have HTTPS going. And you need HTTPS going if you like, for example, want to have a Azure AD authentication, yeah, single sign-on. Well, okay, this is how this works. So what I do now, I will quickly run some VM, and we actually access this from a VM. All right, so here we've got a little Linux box. As you can see, I'm running Firefox, and IP address of my machine is this. So as you can see, we have now the same app we just built, and it will be just running. There it is. How many lines? 59 lines for our, well, a web application written in PowerShell. It's really awesome. So this is how you build a web app on PowerShell. And obviously, I kind of whizzed through the whole process, but I think even if you want to follow along, you'll be able to do it, and at least it will be that easier. Then you can actually see what I do on the screen and then what you get. Because obviously when I started using it, there were some things I didn't quite understand, and there was a rigging, let's say, you know, how this whole web data or web event gets populated, or, you know, that I need to pass in a bunch of things to array to build a form and things like that. But nevertheless, I'm really impressed by this piece of technology, and again, we had it actually running, and it's quite performant. Obviously, I cannot tell you how performant it will be if you wrote something in, say, dedicated language, but to something like I often need to expose some simple interface to users and actually have a full control, because I have a full PowerShell there, so I could use this as the front end and have a web database sitting behind. I could then use PowerShell to communicate one to another, which actually how web applications are running. So the moment I have database in the back, I could have like multiple Docker instances of this running as the front end, because the front end is stateless, isn't it? But nevertheless, I hope that you will come and join the Pode's Discord, because definitely that. I think the problem here is that nobody really connects PowerShell and web server. It's just concept that, well, you don't, or maybe on one way, obviously. On the other end, the moment when you wanna use or learn web applications, obviously you will do things like HTML, JavaScript, even Python. PowerShell is just simply not there. Well, maybe with Pode we will be there. Definitely we are a few steps closer to be there. So yeah, by all means, If there's something you actually want to learn about Pode, or wanted me to present you certain concept, because again, I did it very briefly, because I just wanted to, to be able to get running, get PowerShell, or probably have PowerShell on your machine, just do install module, and then off you go. By all means, if there's something you wanted me to cover in more depth about Pode, let me know, and I will see what I can do about that. And, best on luck in your web app development. I'll see you the next time. Yeah.